Happily back at the command line of our CentOS 7 machine, we can start to take a look at how we can display our mounted file systems. The simplest is just with the use of the command mount. So we can use mount to mount our file systems, but mount without any options and without any arguments then is just going to display our mounted file systems. And you can see on the output, because we've got our control groups or the C groups, we can see that we've got these virtual file systems that do take up a lot of the output. The control groups, remember, are there for resource control, so we can assign then processes to a particular control group to be able to control their access to resources such as memory or CPU. But we also have other more traditional virtual file systems, such as the virtual file systems that's used to access the proc file system. We can see this same information using the mount command as we've seen, but we can also look at the file /etc/mtab. So we never edit this file, but again it's there to display our mounted file system and dynamically changes based on the file systems that we have mounted. This is the same representation that we can see through the proc file system if we go through and take a look at the file /proc and mounts. So it's really, this is typical of Linux, isn't it? Yeah, if there's one way to do something, then there really ought to be three ways to do something. But generally, we're going to use the commands rather than just the plain files, as with other elements of Linux. So the mount command becomes a great way to be able to see these mounts. As well as the mount command, of course, we've got the umount command, and the umount command, we've already seen it, but remember I can use this then to umount data, so that my data directory is no longer mounted. Remember, using the mount -a, we're going to look at everything within the FS tab that is marked as auto mount, which is one of the default options. Anything that is marked as auto that's not currently mounted will then be mounted. So it becomes very easy. We can check the syntax correctness, or if you like, do a syntactical check on the FS tab file to make sure what we've added to the FS tab file is actually going to work the next time we reboot the server. So I think it's a really good idea to make sure that we don't normally mount our file systems from the command line ourselves, add them to the FS tab and then use mount -a so we can check what we've written matches what we think we've written. Now that I've got my data directory mounted, what we could do is go through then, say, and touch data. Of course, we'll put /data and file1. So we've now just written this new file to the data directory. Now, although when we unmount it, we are going to do a sync, what we might like to do is then just issue the sync command. The sync command is then going to make sure that any write buffers that have content, so our dirty write buffers, are flushed through to disk. In this way, then, when we run the umount command, we can be certain that we have actually written the buffers through to disk. So thank you very much for looking. We'll get back now to the slides and we'll take a look at managing our swap file systems.